Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and this week we had the release of iOS 18 Public Beta 3 along with iOS 17.6.1. But there's even more features to talk about since the iOS 18 Public Beta 3 is out What's New video. We'll also talk about that as well as the experience of iOS 18 Public Beta 3, iOS 18.1 Beta 1, and your experience based off the YouTube community poll where there's over 26,000 votes at the time of this video. Now, before we talk about new features, the first thing I wanted to mention is a feature that's coming to all phones right now if you're using Apple Maps online. Apple Maps has a new beta. I've talked about this before, but it now works on Firefox. So if we go into Firefox here, you can go to beta.maps.apple.com and actually use Apple Maps online. So if you're wondering what some of those maps look like, maybe you're not in a location where you can use Apple Maps, you can see that here. Even if you're not using the app on your phone, you want to try it out on a Mac, it works there as well. Also, Apple Digital ID is coming to more states in the United States. It recently launched in Ohio, but it looks like it's coming to Iowa and Tennessee. And in the Wallet app, if you go to driver's license or state ID, you'll be able to add it here according to information that 9to5Mac obtained from a source. So that should be coming very soon with Iowa and Tennessee. One thing I wanted to note has to do with the release notes that Apple actually released this past week regarding iOS 18 Beta 5 and Public Beta 3. If we go into the Feedback app, I can show you that here. We'll go in, and within the Feedback app under iOS 18.1 Beta 1, they haven't actually updated this. And many people have been asking me, why can't I update from iOS 18 Beta 5 or Public Beta 3 being the same thing to iOS 18.1 Beta 1. Well, it's only available for iPhone 15 Pro and 15 Pro Max, but they've also updated the notes on the iPad and Mac, and this is public facing, and if you go to this website, I'll link it in the description, pull down, and you have the 18.1 Beta release notes. You'll see here under Known Issues, updating from iOS and iPadOS 18 Beta 5 to iOS and iPadOS 18.1 Beta 1 is not currently supported and will be available in a future iOS and iPadOS 18.1 beta. So it looks like we'll be able to do it in the future, but not now if you're on those other betas. So that's a little bit unfortunate. You could probably do it with a computer, but there's no easy way to do it without. As far as other new features, well, new features in iOS 18 Public Beta 3 have to do with the home screen at first. If we go to Edit and then we go to Customize, Apple has actually changed the location of where it says Automatic. I'm not sure why they've done this, but it used to be on the left. Now it's the third one in. They've also updated the music widget again. They've made it a little bit nicer where it actually has, if we play this here, let me turn this down. It will actually change so it has sort of the background with a gradient. It's not a perfect gradient, but it actually changes again instead of just being pure black or a dark background. If we go into the calendar, at the top, they've actually changed the icon to change the view. You can see it here on the right. It's the old one with 18.1, which is the same as Beta 4 and earlier, and Beta 5 changes it a little bit. They've also updated reminders. So if you have some reminders and they're reoccurring reminders, you'll now have a little icon next to it. So that's something that's been changed as well. In iOS 18 Public Beta 3, we have new icons that are darker. I've talked about that before. We have new dark mode icons and they keep changing this, but they're now appearing in Spotlight Search. Before, when you search for an icon, it wasn't the same. So if we go to Apple, you'll see here, we've got calendar and photos. They're showing the dark mode icons finally. Under security, there's some updates. So if we go into settings and then we go back, we go down to privacy and security, scroll to the bottom, we have stolen device protection here where we didn't have it here before. It still remains in the same location where it was before, but they've also added it here where they just didn't have it before. With iOS 18, we know that we can lock and hide apps. So we have a hidden folder. We've seen that before where I just put Spotify in there as an example. But if we go back home and we go into settings, within settings, if we go into General, and then we go to iPhone storage, give it a moment to load and scroll down, you can now see hidden apps. So there's a separate section for hidden apps. You have to verify with Face ID, and then it will show you the actual size of those hidden apps. So they won't even show in storage anymore. They're actually just hidden here. One of the big updates of iOS 18 has to do with accessibility. Friend of the channel, Colin Hughes, actually notified me that after Public Beta 3 and macOS Sequoia Beta 3, there's been a big improvement with voice control. If we go into accessibility, go down to where it says voice control here. Under voice control, if you're using this the app will now capitalize proper nouns added to custom vocabulary. So it looks like it's adhering to basic grammar rules, and it's now productive for those that can't use a keyboard. So this is something that should be super helpful, and I know that he and many others are very excited about this getting much, much better. So this is great to see, great to hear. And also I've seen a demo of it and it works really well. I didn't get permission to share that video with you, but if I do, I'll show it in a future video. I wanted to mention a few features that I missed from previous betas as well. If I slide over here, press and hold, then maybe go to, let's try that again, press and hold, go to edit, add widget. Within the widget, any of the legacy widgets seem to have been removed completely from the widget page. So any of the previous ones seem like they're not working anymore. Also, another thing I wanted to mention has to do with the phone. If we go into phone and then we go to recents, they have new icons here next to when you actually miss the call or place the call with a little phone dialer so you can quickly make a call to whoever called you. So that will be updated either with a phone or a little camera if it was a FaceTime call. Within settings, if we go back and we go down to photos, at the bottom of photos, there's a new option for enhanced visual search. This is again in previous betas, but it says allow this device to privately match places in your photos with a global index maintained by Apple so you can search by almost any landmark or point of interest. So if this is enabled, of course, that's a security risk for some people, but if this is enabled, it will enhance search in photos. In iOS 18.1 Beta 1, there was a feature here that actually shows the Home's Theater on the lock screen and then also has a white icon for Apple TV. I don't recall seeing that before. Maybe it was there, but let me know if you've seen that before. Within keyboard, if you have Greek set as a keyboard language, you'll be able to use swipe to text now. So you can just swipe through the letters and type that way if you want to. So that was added some time ago, but it's part of iOS 18. There was also a small splash screen that popped up when I went into Photos last time. Within Photos at the top, you'll see it said See iCloud Status, View Sync Status, Preferences, and Sharing Activity. So it's just a new pop-up there. Now this isn't part of iOS 18 Beta 3 necessarily, but the WhatsApp icon finally adheres to the dark mode icons as well. That's something that looks pretty great. Instagram still doesn't for some reason, but I think it looks great and hopefully will be updated fairly soon for all of the app icons. I'm sure there's some code that Apple has to use to determine to sort of flip that from light to dark mode. So maybe in public beta 4 or something else. Now, of course, the favorite feature this week, at least for me, is something that Apple is really pushing in iOS 18, and that's animations. This is almost sort of one of those Thanos snap moments where it's inevitable that you can delete things. So it sort of reminded me of some of that stuff. I mentioned that in previous videos a little bit, or at least on the title screen anyway, but we can hide distracting items in Safari on iOS 18 Public Beta 3 and Beta 5. Just tap hide and it goes away. You can do that with ads, you can do that with different parts of web pages, and it doesn't guarantee that it will hide everything, but it seems to do a pretty good job. If we go back to the developer page, maybe hide distracting items, we can hide just specific areas of text if we want to, and it goes away. So maybe tap the word, we'll get rid of a few different things here, tap done, but you do have to do them one at a time. And then you can show hidden items and they come right back. The same is true here. If you want to hide distracting items, tap on it, hide, and then cancel, and it comes right back. So those different animations combined with the Apple Intelligence Siri animation is really great. Doesn't work 100%. There we go. Let's try it one more time. There we go with iOS 18.1 Beta 1. Now, as far as iOS 18.1 Beta 2, well, we're still waiting for that, and hopefully we'll get that as soon as this coming week. Based on what we know already, I'm thinking we'll probably get it on Tuesday or maybe even Monday. We just don't know at this point. But I was thinking iOS 18 Beta 6 and Public Beta 4 would probably be around the 12th, with 18.1 Beta 2 on the 13th. We don't know if they're going to release them at the same time, the same exact day. Apple's been pushing them at the same day lately, but either way, that's what we're waiting for. I don't expect any other iOS 17 updates unless there's a security update until probably September. So at this point, I think all of those betas are done. As far as the release notes go, well, I shared some of those before, but if we go into the feedback app, the iOS 18 Beta 5 release notes, there's quite a few of them with many, many resolved items. There's still some known issues, like I mentioned before, with upgrading to iOS 18.1, but they've fixed things such as freeform, handwriting, all sorts of things have been resolved, and Apple continues to work on this, and I think it's really improved. When it comes to the experience, let's first talk about iOS 17.6.1 since that released this week, and for the most part, it's quite good. The majority of people say it's very stable. I've only heard 2 issues with it so far. One of those has to do with the App Store, so if we go into the App Store, we'll tap our name at the top right. If you pull down and refresh, you should be able to actually see all of your updates if you're not seeing them. They should be there. Some people are saying that they're missing. The only other thing I've heard about iOS 17.6.1 is it doesn't completely fix standby mode. So if I bring in a dock here, put it on the dock, lock it, give it just a moment here, tap the display. Let's see if we'll go into standby mode here. Give it a second. There we go. If we press and hold, we should be able to edit this. And some people still cannot edit. For whatever reason, it's very buggy. And if we switch between things, once you edit once, for some people, it just won't let you edit again. But you'll see it's got some odd animations. Sometimes there's some frames that drop in and out. I showed that in the What's New video. But that's the only other complaint I've heard about iOS 17.6.1. Most people say it's pretty great. We'll take a look at battery in just a moment. When it comes to iOS 18 Beta 5 or Public Beta 3, it seems to be a pretty good experience overall, but again, it has some bugs. Google Maps and CarPlay are working properly now. Some are having CarPlay disconnect more though, and animations randomly stutter for some people, or just sort of shut off. So altogether, sometimes animations just disappear, you'll be swiping, and things will just be as though you turned off motion, for example. When VoiceOver is on and you're using different things with accessibility, so if you're using that VoiceOver feature here, some people are actually saying that when you use maybe the share sheet, it sometimes crashes the app. Also, there's a delay in notifications for some. I haven't experienced this myself, but quite a few people have mentioned that to me, asked me about it, and they're seeing little sort of notification delays, which could be a big deal if you're waiting for something important. iOS 18.1 Beta 1 seems to be a little bit worse as it's based on Beta 4 or Public Beta 2. So because it's a little bit older, which is odd that they haven't updated it yet, cellular data keeps dropping for many people. Thankfully, I haven't had that. I thought it was a private relay issue, but it seems like cellular is an issue for some people. Another big issue for me is just unresponsiveness. When I go into an app, sometimes I tap on the app, it doesn't respond at all. Go into music, I'll tap something or scroll, it locks up and I'll have to close the app and then go back in and then it will work again. I've seen this over and over. Rebooting it doesn't seem to fix it permanently, so it's still definitely a bug. Battery isn't great for me on this. We'll show that in just a moment. The volume slider issue, especially when using AirPods, seems to be an issue. I actually mowed the lawn using these as noise canceling headphones, and they sort of didn't work at all with volume for a little bit. I had to reconnect them and then they worked properly. Then the volume was low. I had to reconnect them again. Then it was back to normal. It also seems to get very hot when using voice dictation. So whether that's maybe in Safari, so if you're using that here, apple.com, it will get very, very hot just using voice dictation here or for texting. So that needs to be improved. When it comes to battery life, well, let me share my battery life for this version and share some battery life from others as well. So if we go up to battery with 18.1 Beta 1, battery health is at 92% with 272 cycles. And if we go to the last 10 days, it doesn't typically get me through a day. You'll see I'm at 3 hours and 48 minutes of screen active time, 6 hours and 6 minutes of screen idle time. I'm down to 36%. That's pretty poor battery overall, and I typically have to plug it in at the end of the day if I'm using it heavily. So that's something that could need improvement, or definitely does. Abhishek sent in his battery life on an iPhone 11 Pro Max with 78% battery health, and this is on iOS 18 Public Beta 3. He had 5 hours and 59 minutes of screen on time, 1 hour and 58 minutes of screen off time, and was close to maybe 90% used as far as his battery goes. So it seems to be okay, definitely doing better than 18.1 for me, but again, needs a little bit of improvement. With 17.6.1 though, it seems to be really good for most people. And thanks to Cameron for sending this in on iOS 17.6.1, it actually said your iPhone has been used more than usual since upgrading iOS, which may affect battery life. That's on 17.6.1. And also, you'll see here his overall use, but he said it's easily getting him through the day. Prior to this, with 17.6, he was getting 7 to 8 hours of screen on time, no problem. Most people are reporting the same. So it seems like it's a pretty solid update as far as battery life. When it comes to overall performance, well, other than the stuttering I mentioned, it seems to be pretty solid. Public Beta 3 seems to be the best out of the betas, with 17.6.1 being very stable overall. These phones seem to be fine with the iPhone 15, but again, there's occasional odd touch bugs here and there, and it seems to slow down. So some people have complained that ProMotion isn't ramping up like they would expect in the app library. I haven't noticed any issues with it. It seemed nice and fast. When it comes to overall heat, well, like I mentioned before, it's nice and cool, with the exception of using voice dictation. So I'm using 18.1 here. This one is actually 18 Public Beta 3, and then 17.6.1. So I'll show you that briefly and show you what it looks like. I'll put Fahrenheit up above, but on 18.1, we have about 33 degrees Celsius. On 18 Public Beta 3, about 32 degrees Celsius. And on 17.6.1, we're at about 31 to 32 degrees Celsius. So overall, mostly cool unless you're actually using voice dictation, it seems, for whatever reason. When it comes to Geekbench scores, well, I did run those again on these devices. Let's take a look. From left to right, you'll see I have 17.6.1 iOS 18 Public Beta 3 or Beta 5 and 18.1 Beta 1, all on iPhone 15 Pro and 15 Pro Max hardware. So with 17.6.1, we have the highest scores, 2,984 for single core, and the same for multi-core, 7,450. They definitely go down a bit as you get to 18.1, where it goes as low as 6,550 for multi-core. So there's definitely some things going on in the background. I think it will improve over time as Apple optimizes everything when we get closer to a public release. Now, if you're wondering if you should install any of these updates, well, iOS 17.6.1 doesn't seem to be an issue. It seems to be very stable for most people. No issues whatsoever. However, if you're worried about stability or battery life, I would skip the betas. However, with iOS 18 Public Beta 4 and Beta 6, at this point, I think it'll be very stable and probably safe to try out. I would skip 18.1 Beta 2 when it comes out, unless you really want to try out Apple Intelligence for now. But either way, you could try those out, but I would put them on a secondary device or just have backups ready to go in case you need to downgrade with a computer. Now, as far as what you had to say, let's take a look at some of your comments. Blind Gordy said, I'm on iOS 17.6.1 on my iPhone 15 Pro, and so far performance is tickety-boo. Even music is behaving as it should because I subscribed to Apple Music for a month. I say this because the compilations option is returned when I had taken a promotional offer to subscribe for free for a month, and I have mixed emotions about this. I like that the app is behaving as it's supposed to, but I shouldn't have to pay for stability. Anyway, I have to say something because I haven't heard anything from anyone else talking about this, other than myself. Julian1190 said 17.6.1 on iPhone 14 Plus. No more than 30% battery usage per day. Can't complain. Mr. Austin Felt said, I'm running iOS 17.6.1 on my iPhone 13 mini, and it's been great. Battery life gets me through the day. However, I'm still experiencing the wallpaper dimming bug. Other than that, I'm not having any issues. I love your content so much, Aaron. Keep it up. Thank you. Louise said, and hopefully I'm saying that properly, installed iOS 18.1 on a secondary device, but on my main phone, I'm just running 17.6.1. It's so stable and the battery life is so great that I'm not interested in installing the beta on my daily driver. ERT Dex Dexter said, battery life much improved in Public Beta 3, using the iPhone 14 Pro with 86% battery capacity. Thank you for your great content, Aaron. You're welcome. Scott Hagel 3254 said, iOS 18 Beta 5 is working great on my iPhone 12 Pro. The phone is fast and smooth without stutter or hesitation. Everything I've tried in iOS 18 works without any issue, including all of my apps. Daily battery life is very good with little to no overnight drain. The only thing negative that I have noticed is that animations appear to be a little slower on every screen. Overall, iOS 18 appears to be working well. Raymond Nelson 4586 said 18.1 beta on iPhone 15 Pro Max. Photos still has issues with screenshots not popping up unless you open the camera app. The new Siri animation sometimes glitches out. Battery life is decent but not horrible. Overall, not bad. So lots of updates this week with iOS 17.6.1, iOS 18 Public Beta 3 and Beta 5, and we're waiting for the next updates with Beta 6, Public Beta 4, and 18.1 Beta 2. Let me know if you found any additional features I didn't mention in the video. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. And of course, I'll link this wallpaper in the description like I normally do. If you haven't subscribed already though, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.